for you doing all this work on your runners, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate it.
Why do you ice boat? You don't know. Is there any new development in sales? Are you still working with the sailmaker to improve sales? Because
you know, we've been trying to come up with a new speed sail, something to try to compete with the F speed that, God, when the Swedes have the F speed on there's no stopping them. Those guys are just so good. And so we've been trying to improve we've been messing around with some new sail designs in the FO1. We tried the C1, the FO2 and all this kind of stuff, but it sure seems like the FO1 still is the best all-around full sail for us. And the problem is that most of the big regattas have been so early in the season and we've had such little time for training that it's been really hard to develop new sails. You know, so, and for me, if I'm going into a big event, like I said, I don't like changing too much. I like to have something that I have confidence that I've used before. And that's kind of the way that's been going. I mean, we've been working, trying to come up with some new ideas and stuff. And we have a new John Dennis speed sail. It's being made in the Quantum Loft in Pewaukee, Wisconsin by Jim Glick. That's a real nice speed sail too, but I haven't really had much time to use that yet either. So I'm just going with what I have confidence in.
I think we covered quite a bit. I bet there are a lot of questions from the audience. Anyone would like to ask Ronnie a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you tell me how you physically make yourself into shape?
I used to play basketball a lot and baseball a lot, so this would practice my sprints a little bit. I'm not a very good runner. I mean, the fastest I ever run is with an ice boat in my hands. But and I do weight training at Total Sports whenever I can if I don't have too much ice boats to build. Other than that, lifting the runners and sharpening the runners, and lifting the mold out of the oven, and do a lot of that stuff. But I try to eat right, and it's great to have the sport of ice boating to try to force you to keep your weight where you want it. I have lost close to 20 pounds this year for training for this event, but also when I start working 20 hours a day, the weight seems to go away. I work 22 hours a day when I'm building ice boat stuff. I mean, I'll just work all day long. It's great to work at nighttime. Phone isn't ringing, kids aren't running around, and I can just work, you know. And I find the more I eat, the sleepier I get, so I just keep working.
Any more questions?
About this part, or can we ask...
Any part.
Any part. Ron, we Dutch guys think that you are sailing in a very simple boat, whilst the others had kind of plastic DNs and plastic planks and mold and baked and so forth. But your stuff looks so quite simple.
Yeah, I call it the agricultural boat. For political reasons, I don't know if I should expand on that very much, but basically the DN is supposed to be a home-buildable boat. And I think if you look at mine, it's home-buildable. Yeah. The plank is home-buildable, the hull is home-buildable. Even with the new rules on the mast, I think someone can build a mast at home, a composite mast at home, it's easy. I can tell you how I do it. It's so easy, you can't believe it. And when we made the rule for the mast, I had to describe exactly how I was going to make the mast and send it to Europe and the US so it would be approved to try it. And a lot of people are doing it the same way. It's not...
Also adjustments from the States, you know, with the Starmasters or so, what it is?
That's a really good question. Basically, I sail with my side stays at 136 inches in length almost all the time. I mean, to the point where I have been sailing many years without adjusters at all. But the Swedes are so fast on high wind and clean ice that when I have those conditions, I have to be able to tighten my side stays some more. Other than that, in any normal conditions, the side stays always stay in the same place. And what works really good about this is if I can... I'm not a very good runner. You can imagine this is an ice boat, okay? And now we have the mast, right? And if the side stays are kept at the same length, okay? And now if you move your mast step forward, right? What happens is the stays stay at the same length, so you automatically end up with horrible drawing, but more rake. But the sides stay the same length. And if you need to make the mast stiffer, when you bring the mast back, now the mast is straighter up and down, which also The biggest deal for making the mast stiffer and softer is to change the angle of the head stay to the mast. When you decrease the angle of the head stay to the mast, that's the quickest way to make the mast bend more. We did a finite analysis on the mast years ago. Chris Clark did it, and whole created numbers in the computer, and it's how we came up with our laminating schedule for the mast and all that stuff. But I think it just works perfect, because if you're moving the mast step back and you want to make the mast stiffer, it automatically breaks the mast forward. And if you move the mast step forward and you're keeping the side stays the same length to try to make the mast softer, it does it for you without even having to change the side stays. And I haven't, had any complaints about my speed. I mean, I've always been able to go pretty well. So, and I've found this year that I haven't been changing much at all. I really have been just leaving the step pretty much in the same spot. I tried moving the mast step back further, and I found that I had to lower the sail so much that I was getting jammed in the cockpit by the boom. I didn't have enough space for myself. So I just leave the mast step one notch forward, and then when I have the sail at the right height, the front of the boom is away, and I can move the tiller, and I can get under the boom, and I don't need one of those deck risers people are using. So that seems to work pretty well for me.
What do you consider the right height of the boom? Did you said it's too low for me? I think.
Oh, when the boom in the front is hitting your arms and the tiller and the main sheet, and you don't have enough room for yourself in the cockpit when it's sheeted all the way in block to block.
But do you have a measurement at the back?
It's about 14 inches.
14 inches between
the boom and the deck. But that's in the back. But there's no problem in the back. It's the front where the problem arises. When it comes down too low in the front and it's hitting the tiller.
You already started to explain how you control rotation, but I think quite a few people were not yet here. Can you maybe explain how do you control the rotation of your mast?
Got too many masts here.
Take a look at paper.
My pulleys are fixed on the boom. They're fixed in the same spot on the boom. And I have a long tube that makes adjustments on the deck. So I basically make all the adjustments on the deck. So if you pull back, on the boom, if you're pulling back on the boom with the pulleys, it counter-rotates the mast. It pulls the mast back straight. The idea of pulling the mast back straight is so that when you're pulling on the top of the mast with the leech of the sail, that you're lining up the fore and aft stiffer section of the mast with the sail. If you don't pull back so much, then the mast is allowed to rotate. And when the mast rotates, then, if you can imagine, it's going sideways like this, and it bends much easier this way. And when it bends out like this, because of pulling back on the leech, then it pulls all the luff curve out of the sail, and the sail will go inside out. Now, most of the top guys in Europe with the Luke's masts and the 1D sails are able to sail without so much pulling back on the mast. But with my mast especially, so I don't know if this will all work for you guys, it works a lot better to pull back harder on the boom. My masts are maybe a little bit softer up at the top, so it's more important that, and the sails are fuller at the top, so it's more important to control the rotation. And now that I put the Struble Hound on the top, I'm not having any trouble getting the mast to rotate through the tacks, so I can pull back pretty hard on the boom and not have any trouble with that.
Where do you normally position your plank? All the way back or in the middle? Or?
A little bit forward of the middle.
Okay.
A little bit forward of the middle. About 2 inches, 2.5 inches from maximum forward. And this works for me because of my height and my weight, that I can hike out in the beginning and get the power that I want, and then I can slide all the way in front in the boat and still get the riding moment that I need. I think if your plank is a little bit on the soft side for your mast, it'd be better to have a little further aft. If it's a little bit on the stiff side, you can move it forward. For me, the plank is stiff enough so that I can set the boat up so it will just hike if I want it. Or you can set it up soft enough so it bends a lot and just absorbs everything, you know. And I think in sticky conditions you need it to absorb everything, and because you have to get the mast to bend enough to, and that's the whole trick, is to get the mast to bend enough in this condition